Yo, what up? What up? Coming to you live on the best weekend of the year. The year, for those of you that don't know, I always call this part of July the best weekend of the year. Why is that? Some people may ask, because my birthday's on the 26th. And so this is Kylan's weekend, Kylan's month. Praise the Lord for another year, but coming to you live, back on the throne once again for a little bit. This is episode 94 of the Crossover Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening later. I'm joined by Trey and Amina. So, Amina, go ahead and reintroduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's Amina reintroducing myself as I do every week, straight from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have topics to discuss and we're going to get right to it. Next.
Right?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to be back on the podcast. It's Trey. Um, and like Amanda said, we got a lot of good topics to talk. We got some good topics to talk about. Um, yeah, it's good to be back on the podcast as usual.
Yes. So we have a lot of topics. I'm gonna try to remember them because they're not right in front of me right now, unfortunately. But we do have a couple. Um,
You want me to
uh,
inbox something?
yes, please.
I'm sending over some stuff to you too, Kylan. Hold on.
But yeah, Malcolm Jenkins calling Jerry Jones a bully. Y'all have to excuse me. I just had a week. I'm in grad school. I just had a week where we had 6 assignments due in 4 days. So you have to brain scramble. But Amina just said
Yeah, I just sent it to you in your inbox.
these questions. The one that I work with is the Malcolm Jenkins. So guys, Malcolm and him calling Jerry Jones a bully. And do you agree with him or not? Is Jerry Jones a bully? Is he bullying players by making them on his roster national anthem? Go ahead, Trey.
Um, I don't know if you want to call it a bully. Bully might not be the word to use. I do think that Jerry Jones is a very strong-willed person. He's very opinionated, and he's old school. He's the owner of the team, and I mean, I don't think there's probably not one thing that goes on in that organization, the Dallas Cowboys, that he doesn't know about or somebody isn't telling him about. So I think Jerry Jones is on a really high pedestal, and because he's the owner, he thinks he can do whatever he wants, and in many ways he can, but he feels because he's very opinionated and because he's the owner and he's on the mountaintop, he thinks that he can just say, okay, you cannot stay in the locker room and you can't protest on the field because that's what he would do. That's his opinion on um, on the whole anthem protest. So I wouldn't really call him a bully, but I do think he's a very strong-willed and an opinionated person, and I know this because I'm a very strong-willed and opinionated person. I'm very logical when it comes to arguments, um, and I tend not to want to lose an argument. So I can see, and that's why I can see it in Jerry Jones. The problem with very opinionated people uh, is when they get into an argument or they have an opinion on something that's contrary to the majority of people's beliefs, or it's if it's contrary to popular belief. And with Jerry Jones, he believes something that a lot of people probably on his team and across the nation don't support. So when you have somebody like that, they tend to force their opinion on others. And because Jerry Jones is on the mountaintop as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, not only can he verbally say and verbally push that opinion on other people and try to make them believe what he's saying is true, or try to make them agree with him, he can legally, and I'm not saying, federal law or state law, but legally within the Dallas Cowboys organization, make up a law or rule that says you must, even if you don't verbally agree or mentally agree with my opinion, you have to fall in line with what I believe about the national anthem protests. So again, I wouldn't really call it bully. It's more so that he's just a very opinionated person, and the combination of him being a very opinionated and strong-willed person, combined with the fact that he's the owner, makes for an interesting situation, because not only can he verbally push an opinion on somebody, but he can, like what he did, make up a rule that says, you can't be in a locker room during the national anthem, and you can't protest on the field if you're a member of the Dallas Cowboys.
Go ahead, Amina.
Yes, I agree with everything that Trey just said about Jerry Jones, and it's just the culture of the team. He'll be 76 in the fall, which means he's getting up there in age. He's been running the show in Dallas since 1989 when he bought the team 29 years ago. And he's seen a lot, heard a lot, and he feels a lot about different things, especially racial and social matters, as well as politics, that a majority of people in the sports world and outside of the sports world don't agree with. He just is one of those people that are typical of his age group that are stuck in their ways and there's no way changing it. It's like trying to introduce a healthier way of eating to somebody that's 85 years old and trying to get them to do it. They're not going to do it most likely because they're set in their ways from all these decades they've been alive. They're not going to sit there and do that. No matter how good it is, they're not going to accept it. Stuck in their ways, not about progress. I mean, he's in the NFL, which is the least progressive major sport in the country, which many people would agree with. And he's just not about progression. If he had accepted and embraced this movement that Colin Kaepernick started 2 years ago, I can guarantee you that the culture of the Dallas Cowboys would have majorly changed from what they're known for. Like, people would have started coming around to them that aren't fans of theirs. But this just goes to show that, Dallas Cowboys, their organization, they do what they do. And it's disappointing that certain players on his team are agreeing with him on his stance on the movement, and it's just wrong. Colin Kaepernick has said time and time again, it's not about the anthem, it's not about the flag. It's about police brutality against black folks and injustices. Even the veterans of this country support him. The veterans are the ones that even told him how he should go about protesting, and they suggested to him to kneel. So if you got beef with Colin Kaepernick, you got beef with the veterans, because they're the ones that told him, if we support this movement, and if you want to protest, you should kneel. They told him that. So take that up with veterans. As far as Malcolm Jenkins calling him a bully, as Trey said, I wouldn't think of him so much as a bully, but more so of an old school tyrant that has a dictatorship over Dallas, Texas. Bully is too much of a kind word. Just tyrant. This dude is like he has like an iron fist on this team for 29 years that he just won't let go. And my thing is, if all the players on the Dallas Cowboys, whether they're starter players or bench players, if every last one of them decide to come together in a secret meeting that he doesn't know anything about, and they come to the table and decide to, hey, let's do this. Let's go out on the field and let's all kneel together and go against his green. I guarantee you it's gonna be a PR nightmare for Jerry Jones, and it's gonna backfire on him. So that's what I would suggest for them to do. Go against his so-called orders and go ahead and participate in the movement if you wish to. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have any players on your team, you don't have a team that play games, and therefore you get no revenue. So he needs to tread lightly and watch the waters that he be paddling in, because at the end of the day, these players make the team, not you. Yes, you've been owning the team for all these years, but without these players, you have no team. It's like a school without students, you have no school. You're just a teacher. So if they all decide to participate, which they should, hey, that's just going to prove that you have no sentiments positively about this movement. Hey, Jerry Jones gonna do what he do. That's what he's known for, saying off the wall fly stuff.
I remember a quote from a video game. We pull out a lot of stuff when we talk about stuff like this. I remember a quote from a video game. It was the Mass Effect 3. Give you some context. The character of the game at this point is facing an apocalyptic situation, and he's trying to form some alliances. Now, you can go with the rebel option, or you can go with the blue option. I promise I'm going to get to Jerry Jones in a minute. The quote is this. A bully has no friends when it matters the most, right? Now, as Amina said, and I agree with her and with Trey as well, calling Jerry Jones a bully is too nice of a word. What he is a dictator, a tyrant, a man with the best thing to call Jerry Jones is this: he's a rich man with no morals. That's what he is. He's a rich man with no morals, no compass, no man with all that money who knows all this sense, who's supposed to be one of the smartest men in the world, can be this stupid, willfully stupid, right? So, Jerry Jones is an idiot. We don't really need to hash out what Jerry Jones is. We all know what he is. He's a fool with a lot of money. That's what he is. And let's go get to our next question about Dak Prescott. But Jerry Jones Malcolm Jenkins is right. Jerry Jones is a bully, right? I may not agree with his choice of words, thinking this too easy, but that's what he's a bully. He does what he wants on the team. If it wasn't for him owning the Dallas Cowboys, he wouldn't be as rich as he is right now. So you could basically say his money, his richness is invested in the Dallas Cowboys. And he is selling out the Dallas Cowboys to for lack of a better word, to coon, to puppet, to Perry for Trump. That's what he's doing. So he has a very young team, and I'm very unwilling to destroy any of his players as far as Dak Prescott or Ezekiel Elliott, because you have to realize that these are players in their 20s. They're no older than Trey and Amina. I'm older than both of them, right? So they're 24, 25, 23-year-old men just starting out in their football careers, not trying to make no waves. Dak Prescott is a 4th-round pick. He's about to get a $23 million deal. I hate the fact that, money rules everything. He's looking out for number one instead of looking out for the community and for football players as a whole. But this is what we say about football players all the time. They say they're all about the team, but for real, it's all about them getting their money. Then they'll make waves later, right? So Jerry Jones is a bully. He is what he is. Malcolm Jenkins is right, because there really are no strong veterans like a Malcolm Jenkins, like a Jason Peters on that team to really voice and say something and rebel against authority, right? The one rebel that was on the Dallas Cowboys they got rid of, which was Dez Bryant, and we'll get to him in a minute too, right? So they got rid of Dez Bryant. He was the vocal rebel. He was the one that talked the stuff, was the one that was most vocal, was the one that was really trying to organize some type of protest, and they got rid of him for it, right? And he all but said that in his Twitter storm yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute. But the Cowboys are a very young team, one of the youngest teams in the NFL outside of the Eagles. So, and they have no real leaders. So, of course, if you're our age, if you're in your 20s, your boss says something, you try and get your money, you know that your contract is almost up, of course you're not going to try and make waves, Dak Prescott is a 4th-round pick. He shouldn't really be a starter for the Cowboys. He's not trying to make no waves. He wants his $23 to $25 million extension next year. He's not trying to make no waves. Neither is Ezekiel Elliott, who for once this year, nobody said anything about in the offseason. He's trying to get his money too. Everybody's trying to get their money. And so when you look at it like that, Jerry Jones is definitely a bully, because what he's doing is he's running these young men, knowing that they're not going to say anything because they're in their 20s. They're only on their first NFL contract, and they're not going to make no waves because they want their money. And they know that he can cut them, ruin their careers, and make sure that they never get a job, and Colin Kaepernick's collusion lawsuit will prove this in a minute. And, I can't really blame him. Jerry Jones is a bully. Malcolm Jenkins is right. Jerry Jones is a bully. Jerry Jones is a tyrant. Jerry Jones is a dictator. Whatever you want to call Jerry Jones, that's what he is. He's cooning for his boy Trump. He owns a lot of Papa John's restaurants. This man has no morals. I don't know him personally, but I can say just from these actions, the fact that he's so willing to destroy his reputation to maintain a stance for his boy Donald Trump, who he donated to, the fact that he himself doesn't stand for the national anthem, and there's pictures to prove that. You can find that on the internet. The fact that you want to try and coon for Trump, you want to try and do what you want to do just to silence some black voices. Do what you want to do, man. It's your franchise. But ultimately, like all these other people, you're going to ruin your reputation for Trump. Nobody's going to want to play for you. Malcolm Jenkins is just voicing and putting truth to power. There's a reason why you have to draft players and nobody wants to sign with the Cowboys. There's a reason for that. And eventually, once Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, once you ruin them like you ruined DeMarco Murray, Dez Bryant, and everybody else, once it's time for them to go and you have no more young players and you have nobody that makes somebody want to come and watch the Cowboys on Sunday, it's all over for you, Jerry. And you're going to have nobody to blame but yourself. The NFL is dying, and you're one of the reasons for it. You are a dictatorial, tyrannical idiot trying to run the
I said somebody else is going to lose the team.
Yeah, I mean, you're ruining your franchise. It's saying something to say the Dallas Cowboys are the best team in Dallas, Because there's nobody else other than the Mavericks, and you're ruining your franchise. The coon for Donald Trump. I mean, there's really no other term for what you're doing. You're cooning for Trump. So moving right along, we'll just get rid of football right now. So y'all opinions on Dak Prescott saying, and again, I just put some background to it. He's got $25 million on the line. So knowing that knowledge now, your opinion on Dak Prescott's stance talking about now the anthem is not the time to protest. Go ahead, Trey.
I think I heard about this just yesterday, I believe. And I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I mean, Dak Prescott is not the most vocal person, um, but I'm looking at a quote from an MSN article. I'll just read it. This is Dak Prescott. I'd never protest during the anthem, and I don't think that that's the time or the venue to do so. The game of football has always brought me such a peace, and I think it does the same for a lot of people. A lot of people playing the game, a lot of people watching the game, a lot of people that have any impact of the game. So when you bring such a controversy to the stadium, to the field, to the game, it takes away from that. It takes away from the joy and the love that football brings a lot of people. For me, I'm all about making a chance and making a difference. I think this whole kneeling and all of injustice, and all of that was all about just raising awareness. And the fact that we're still talking about social injustice years later, I think we've gotten to that point. I think we've proved it. We know about social injustice. I'm up for taking a next step, whatever that step may be, for action and just not kneeling. I've always believed in standing up for what I believe in, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. And he goes on later on in the article saying, he didn't write the article, it was an interview, saying, you know, I believe in what those other guys believe in. So I actually see what I see the point Dak Prescott is making, and I think maybe what initially news outlets put out was that they only quoted that one portion of what he said. And I mean, if protesting during the national anthem is not the time, then when is, right? I hear, we've heard that argument, and I agree with that argument to a certain extent. But I also see what Dak Prescott is saying. You know, I see what he's saying, but I don't think he's totally right. What he's saying is we've been kneeling all this time to protest and to bring awareness to social injustice in general, but mainly when it comes to police brutality and racism. And what he said is, and that quote is, you know, we've already proved that it exists, that there is social injustice. And I don't think we fully proved that. I think there's a lot of people in this country who fully believe that police brutality, you know, against African Americans and people of color is not a major issue. They believe that racism either doesn't exist or isn't a major issue in this country. So I don't think that I think Black people and other people of color who've experienced racism know it's real because they've seen it or they've experienced it themselves. But I don't think a lot of other people, and even some people of color, African Americans and other people of color, haven't really experienced racism or haven't had unfavorable run-ins with law enforcement. So I don't think he's necessarily on point with saying that we've proved that there is social injustice. You know, because the one man, the guy who owns the franchise he plays for, clearly does not see that there's an issue. He thinks that standing for the national anthem and the flag is more important than, you know, the lives of really the majority of his players. If you look at the Dallas Cowboys roster, I'd venture to say that, with the exception of, I think, maybe 2 players Yeah, two players, Cole Beasley and Sean Lee. Everybody else, in terms of their starters, are black. Their whole offensive line, or maybe three. I think all but one player on the offensive line is black. Their starting quarterback is black. Their starting running back is black. Defensive line is all black. Linebackers are black except for Sean Lee. Corners are black. Safeties are black. So that's in debate. There's a concept that when you're arguing a point, let's say I'm arguing that the sky is blue. If I come up with even one piece of evidence that the sky is blue, then I've proved my point. I don't need to come up, I don't need to say, I don't have to come up with three arguments that the sky is blue. Or if I'm disproving something, I don't need to say, well, no, the sky is blue because look at it right now, it's red. If I come up with even one point that says that the sky is not blue, then I've effectively shown that the sky is not blue. So, and the point is, I don't know if that analogy makes any sense, but the point is, Dak Prescott is saying that we proved that social injustice is real, that it exists, and that he believes in what these guys believe in, that meaning the people that are protesting during the not protesting the national anthem, they're protesting during the national anthem. That the guy you work for, clearly the point has not gotten across to him. The point has not been proven to him and many other owners, and even business executives, i.e. John Schneider. So, although I hear what he's saying, and if it were true that we have proved proved the point, I'd be all for what he was saying. But, and then the other thing is, Dak Prescott. I mean, what has Dak Prescott done? I mean, I haven't. Now I could be, he could be doing things locally that I'm not aware of. But it's to combat or to speak against social injustice. What has he done? Nothing. And it goes back to what we were just talking about. What I was just talking about is that Jerry Jones is such an opinionated guy that he pushes his opinion on other people. And because he's the owner, and these guys are, like Colin's saying, these guys are really young, and they know that if they were to speak out against Jerry Jones, this new policy, and stand in support for protesting during the anthem, that, I mean, as much as Jerry Jones wants to win, he's a very opinionated person and will do anything he can to win an argument. And if that means trading or, getting rid of one of your best players, he'll do it. I mean, we saw it with DeMarco Murray. I mean, I don't know the details of why they didn't. I think, if I'm correct, it was a trade to the Eagles. I don't know why he just the ultimate reason why he decided to trade DeMarco Murray, but I imagine that it had something to do with money, and it probably also had something to do with a disconnect in interests. Des Bryant. Why didn't they re-sign Des Bryant? Because Des Bryant was outspoken, rebellious player, and Jerry Jones don't like that, right? Yet he's willing to support and stand up for players who have committed, actual crimes like domestic abuse or, other things. So, or murder in the case of Greg Hardy. But in the same token, with Dak Prescott, and I'll end with this. I can't get on Dak Prescott because he probably doesn't have any reference point for for what he's saying. He's speaking most likely because the people in the front office that he's been talking, that he's around a lot, probably don't support protesting for the national anthem. And so when you're I'll use this example and I'll be done. When you're in a classroom or you're with a group of friends and one of your friends is upset, right? It changes the dynamic of the room. So if they're upset and they're being very short with you, you say something to them or you're joking around with them, and usually they're the type of person that you can joke around with them. And then today, for whatever reason, they're not. Whether it's because what it doesn't matter what they were upset about. It changes the dynamic of the room, and it changes the vibe of the room. So if one person's upset and they respond nasty to somebody, then everybody else is quiet, and it just messes up the whole vibe of the room. The same thing goes for when you're constantly around people who believe certain things, right? And I don't know if Dak Prescott is a very opinionated person or not. Clearly, he has an opinion here. But if you're around a lot of in this case, a very strong person a lot, and you're constantly hearing their beliefs, and you're not hearing the other side, you tend to go with what you hear. What you hear a lot. You tend to believe what you hear a lot because you're around it, and it influences your beliefs, unless you hear the other side. And I think Dak Prescott needs to hear the other. I think he sees what people are doing, but I don't think he's really heard. Maybe he hasn't heard what the other side is saying. Hey, we respect, and the other side is, hey, we respect, we respect our flag to a certain extent, right? We respect that you love your country, and in fact, we love our country too. But there are certain things going on in this country that are dishonorable, and so we want to protest it. And the way we're doing that is that we're kneeling during the national anthem, because the national anthem is something that, as a country, is supposed to unify us. And the point is, we're not unified. So maybe if Dak Prescott hears that and somebody says, hey, man, I hear what you're saying, blah, 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 and I partially agree with your point. However, here's our side of the story. And I think you'd see a change in, not necessarily a change in opinion, but you see Dak Prescott kind of, the light bulb will go on. But that's my thoughts on Dak Prescott.
Amina, you there?
I'm sorry, I was on mute because Trey was talking. Okay, this is just a typical, usual case in society of the curious case of money talks. He's getting that money. I don't know how much money he has with his current contract, but it has to be a lot for him to be signed with Jerry Jones, especially in this climate we're living in the grand old USA. But it's not happening. You're a black guy and you're siding with this white lunatic. Let's be straight up and honest. This movement is really got started for what's been going on with black men across the country for so many years at the hands of police officers. Black men like you, Dak Prescott. Black men like you. Mm-hmm. So for you to side with the enemy at this time for this movement, it just goes to show that you're not a part of your community as far as racial background is concerned. Money is more important than principle to you. Morals, values, convictions, whichever adjective you want to describe the situation. And it's unfortunate, but you've been with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know what year you got it with the team. I'll have to look it up. but you've been there for so many years now that you are programmed. It's Big Brother has you programmed, and it's unfortunate. You are so deep rooted into the Jerry Jones culture of Dallas, Texas, that you don't even realize it. You probably can't even go to a progressive city where they have a progressive team like the Eagles or something or the Ravens or something, for example, and survive, because you won't. It's just ridiculous. Like, why? My thing is, if you're really not a part of this movement, you're really not in support of it, you should have just kept silent. So this the backlash of it wouldn't be on you. Just remain silent. If you don't have anything nice to say about this movement, don't say anything at all. Number one life golden rule. You know, you should be in full support of this movement. You should be willing to say goodbye to all those millions of dollars in these contracts you're getting for the sake of this movement. Stand for something in your life or fall for anything. I mean, like, come on, it's not rocket science. Don't be just taking money and you abandon what really matters the most in society. And as far as the football is concerned, the NFL, right now in the NFL, this movement is what's most important. Not games, not Super Bowls, not trophies, not rings, not touchdowns, interceptions, none of that. What's most important right now is this movement. Embrace it or don't say anything at all.
Like I said, I can't. It's hard for me to criticize a man who shouldn't be starting as a quarterback. Only reason he started is because of he took advantage of a situation and played well when Tony Romo went down. And I can't blame a guy who's trying to get a new contract, trying to get a $23 to $25 million extension. I can't blame a guy. You know, he's the de facto leader of the team. Can't really have free thought. Um, there's a sentence, free thought, that I just despise, but we'll get to that later. Uh, he can't really think freely. He can't really make waves, like I said earlier, because he's got money on the line. He's a young guy, 23, 24 years old. This is why I can't, even though I want to, I can't really blame him. You know, I can't, I'm not in that position where, I only have a certain amount of time to make money. And, I'm making this decision between the community or making money and having generational wealth forever. And, a lot of people, a lot of athletes have made a lot of foolish decisions based on money. I mean, Michael Jordan, Republicans buy shoes too. A lot of players will sacrifice activism for money. So I can't really blame him. It's just a long line of athletes that are sacrificing the activism for money. But now Michael Jordan has a lot of charitable stuff that we know about, that we talked about on this podcast. So he's not in the same kind of category as Dak Prescott. Plus, he didn't have to make a decision at 23, 24 years old on whether to stand with the community or stand with his employer. So I can't blame him. But I think that it's kind of a stupid thing to say, as far as, I don't think the national anthem is a time to protest. I mean, let's just go back to historical people. I mean, before Colin Kaepernick was protesting during the national anthem, there were 3 athletes that did the same thing. Jackie Robinson famously quoted, I've shared this on my Facebook before. He said that his quote, and I'm going to paraphrase, you can look up the real quote, Google Jackie Robinson national anthem, it'll come right up. He said that he wasn't going to stand for the national anthem or honor the national anthem until, discrimination was over and until black people were treated the same as white people. That's what he said. I paraphrased. That's essentially what he said. Doctors, John Carlos and and Tommy Smith, they did the same thing. You know, they won medals at the Olympics, and what did they do? Raise their fists during the national anthem. So for people like a Dak Prescott and anybody else, black or white, that says something about the national anthem is not a time, I refer you to those three legends of their respective sports who actually did protest and lost everything. Well, except for Jackie Robinson, and lost a lot. You know, the Tommy Smith and John Carlos, they couldn't come back to track anymore. You know, nothing's worth ever. It's worth a fight. Nothing's worth having if you don't fight for it. And you know, I just want you to read a book. I'm not even like Trey. I want you to read a book. You know, I want you. I know you're not that dumb. I want you to Google all those athletes that I just said. You're probably too big to watch a podcast like this, but get some people in front of you who can show you a book, show you, you know, John Carlos and Tommy Smith doing what they needed to do. Show you Jackie Robinson's quote where he said he wasn't going to do it until black people were treated equally. So many people have done what Colin Kaepernick have done. I just named three who lost something by standing up during the national anthem. You know, you shouldn't be standing with a guy who you know has no morals and will get rid of you in a minute to find a cheaper quarterback that can be a yes man just like you. You're the de facto leader of this team. I know you don't want to make waves, which is why it's so hard for me to criticize you right now. Because I know you're 23, 24, you want your money. I appreciate that. But you got to do something, man. You got to stand up. You know, you got to stand up. I mean, you see what this man is doing. This man is your owner, your boss is an ardent Trump supporter. You know, he's put a lot of money into making sure that your people, your community, you know, are, so many people that come to Cowboys games. I mean, you're in Texas. There's a huge Latin community in Texas. I mean, you've seen the fact that he's separating these children, keeping them in cages. You've seen so much stuff. And I know the other side will say, well, Obama did the same thing. But we ain't on Obama right now. We on your boy. And you know, we so much going on, and you that need your voice. So many issues in that state that you represent, but you choose to say, well, you know, the anthem just isn't the time, and you're just making yourself a target, man. You know, I don't know how many people are gonna want you in this city when the Cowboys decide that, you know, you ain't worth it no more, and that's coming soon. I mean, you know, you got to be careful, man. All right, so moving right along. Let's see. Let's just get football out of here. So training camp has started. The Eagles have started training camp. So have the Raiders. Both of our teams. Well, the Eagles are a little bit better off than the Raiders right now. But Carson Wentz today was able to do drills, 11 on 11. Was able to, you know, they can't hit him, but was able to take some contact and everything. So our thoughts going forward this season for the Eagles and for Amina, your Raiders, what's going on? Khalil Mack isn't showing up for camp because John Gruden won't talk to him. Y'all got a situation over there? Let us know, Amina. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amina. We'll start with Amina. Go ahead.
I think what's going on for everyone that doesn't know, yes, I'm the Raiders fan that's in this group. Um, what's been going on? This is the only bloop that's been going on this off season. Everything's been going great up until this popped up. It has to do with his money a little bit and a little bit of a disagreement, but I think with a little conversation between Gruden and Khalil that it'll be all right. I think people are just in their feelings right now, and people need to get themselves together because this season, I know we're gonna bounce back from how we've been for the last two seasons. And anybody that knows anything about my team knows what happened in December of 2016, and between then and now, and how we just need to forget about all that and just move forward. It's just a little bloop. I feel as though they just need to come to a consensus of what's been going on and really get the ball going, because he's our defensive end concerning Khalil Mack, and it's not good. Like, you're one of our starters. Like, get your act together. My quarterback needs to talk to him too. Derek Carr, since he's the leader of this team, as far as players is concerned, and truly understand what's going on with him. Talk to him. Because y'all started in this together, like this whole process, as far as in the league. So, pull his coattail and see what's really going on with him. Because there has to be something. But it's just training camp, so, and it's only just starting, so I think everything would be fine. But it's new developments coming out as the days going on, so I'll be able to really judge in a few days. But this literally just popped up, so I just need everything to be well with my team for the coming season. And I think it will be, because the Chargers, people say, oh, the Chargers are going to take over the AFC West. Y'all just, one of y'all star players will be out for the entire season due to an injury. Just came out like literally, I think, yesterday. So I don't know how that's going to impact things. So we ain't got the Chargers to worry about no more. But Raiders, please get it together. Like, seriously. I'm begging y'all. No more dumb seasons. Like, let's have just a normal season. Like, I know y'all can. Like, it was years ago. Bounce back. Thank you. As far as the Eagles are concerned, good to see Wentz and Foles out there on the court together. Not the court, the field together. I think Carson Wentz needs a little bit more physical therapy, because the videos that I did see, he was limping around the field a little bit when he was trying to run. Like, it wasn't like a smooth run when he was running. It was a little bit of a wobble. So it's about to be August in a few days. I think by October or November, he'll be good to go with being back in games. But I do think they still need to start Foles for game one because of it. Like, you don't want to risk anything because he's still wobbling around when he runs. But they're doing great out there. They're putting their best foot forward as the champs they are, and I wish them well. Both teams, my team and my hometown team. I wish them well for the coming season. May both teams have a very blessed season ahead. Just forget about everything in the past and just keep moving forward.
Trey, your thoughts on our Eagles?
I mean, I always have high expectations for the Eagles, man. I mean, especially now that they've won the Super Bowl. I mean, you got to.
You can't leave.
I can't expect
I think I busted it because I was using that back in the beginning of the year.
anything but a Super Bowl. For real. I mean.
Yeah, I did. Like, normal doesn't go in there, but like, let's go.
How'd you kill some? Oh! Ooh. Ooh.
I mean, you can't expect a lot from the Eagles. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do two things at once. You can't expect a lot from the Eagles. I should expect a lot from the Eagles because they won the Super Bowl. They've got probably the best quarterback in the league. And the continuity that they've had is tremendous. I'm glad to see, my man Nick Foles and Carson Wentz, he's in training camp. I mean, obviously, at this point, Carson Wentz is not full strength, so you can't expect too much from Carson Wentz right now. But I mean, I'm looking forward to what the season holds, and I mean, I do expect the Eagles to, at the very least, get back to the NFC Championship game. I wish I could have gone to their open training camp, but I heard tickets sold out in like something like 30 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that I was thinking about it just the other day, and it just hit me again. Oh my God, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Because as you've probably heard myself and Kylan talk about, in basketball, I've always been a Heat fan. Sixers first, but I do still like the Heat. And the Heat won 2 rings. They did a repeat back in, I think it was the 2011-12 season and then the 12-13 season. And I was happy then. But seeing, Philly win a title was a whole different story. So, it's a whole different feeling. And you got some players who are on the PUP list. Brandon Graham. I believe they did put Jason Peters on. I'm not sure, but I do fully believe that the majority of these guys will be ready to go, with the exception of Carson Wentz, week 1, if not week 2. Carson Wentz, he's probably going to not be ready till close to week 3 or 4, but I'll be happy to see them play.
My apologies. I fully expect Carson Wentz as both Amina and Trey said. I agree with. I don't expect him to come out 100%. Like I've said before, and I've shared my journey back from injuring. I didn't injure my knee, but I've injured a leg area, my leg and everything. It takes you about a couple months, 3 to 6 months, 12 months to fully be back to strength in that area. When you hurt anything involving your leg or your knee, it takes a little bit. But I'm just happy to see him out there throwing. I've been watching the videos, and it seems like he still has his velocity. He still has his elusiveness. Now, I'll just be the cautious person right here. I've said on this podcast before, I don't expect Carson Wentz to play in any preseason game. As a matter of fact, I hope he is ready by game 1, but I think more realistically, he won't be back until about game 3 or 4. I think that the Eagles will symbolically let Nick Foles start the home opener. Just as the symbolic journey of letting Nick Foles really complete his journey from starting as a backup and then come in the next year, the Super Bowl defense year, as the starter, at least for the first couple of games, then eventually fade into the spotlight for Carson Wentz. So I don't expect him to play in the first 2 games at least. But he could surprise me and start in game 1. But I really think that the Eagles won't play him in game 1. I think more realistically, he'll come back in the second or third game this year. I think that the Eagles have good depth at quarterback, good depth at wide receiver, good depth at running back. They've really been doing well. They're stacked on the defensive line, stacked at the cornerback position. Somebody else who's making their comeback from injury, who we're not really talking about, is Sidney Jones. And by all accounts, from what I'm hearing from training camp, being up here 4 hours away from Philly, is that Sidney Jones is having a very impressive camp. So much so that he's been lining up to the outside, and they have slid Jalen Mills into the slot position. So look out for that. Sidney Jones could definitely become the second cornerback opposite Ronald Darby. So definitely look at that. I mean, the cornerback depth is what allowed the Eagles to, be able to do all the stuff that they did to get the guy from North Carolina and then ultimately get rid of him. and still have 3 really good cornerbacks, you know? So I will definitely warn anybody that listens to this podcast that, you know, you really should, even though I love Carson Wentz, it's really not about him. There's 2 young players making a comeback. It's him and it's Sidney Jones on the defensive side. And you should really get to know who Sidney Jones is. He's the 2nd round pick that should have been a 1st round pick that I totally called that the Eagles would take. And he's going to be a star in this league. He's going to be our shutdown corner. Y'all really need to know who Sidney Jones is. But as far as Carson Wentz, Carson Wentz is going to be good. He'll be back. He's the one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, maybe the best quarterback in the league, and he will make a significant jump in his junior season. So moving right along, we'll just get to baseball real quick since Matt's not here. The Phillies right now are in first place. They're 6 games ahead of the Nationals. They just made a very, very smooth trade to get Asdrubal Cabrera from the Mets. You know, the Phillies are pleasantly surprising me, you know. I thought they'd be the worst team in Philly this year, and they're proving to be a good team, you know. It looks like they might make the playoffs. It looks like the Flyers might be the only team in Philadelphia in 2018 that did not make the playoffs this year. And that's a shocker to me. I thought it would be the Phillies. So, you know, the Phillies are doing well. They're proving to be good. The trade deadline is coming up, so we'll see what other moves they make. They definitely need bullpen help, so we'll see what they do with that. But the Phillies are doing well. Yeah, that's Matt's around the diamond right there. So moving right along to our 2 more serious topics. Okay, we've had an unfortunate incident. You know, it's another podcast where we're coming on after an unfortunate incident. So a young black girl lost her life in Oakland to a would-be, well, you know, we won't say would-be, but she was on the subway, and unfortunately her and her sister got stabbed. She wound up losing her life, and you know, she lost her life. Nia Wilson, only 18 years old, just starting out the prime of her life. May have been going to college. Don't really know if she was going to college, but she was at least 18, old enough to vote. Probably just graduated high school, and she lost her life just doing what a bunch of us big city or medium city people do, just taking the subway, going wherever she was going, living her life, lost her life. And, you know, as somebody who, even though not up here in upstate New York, as somebody who regularly takes the subway to go to work and to go places, was really eye-opening for me that this guy, she was just doing, John Lee Kyle, however he pronounces it, just lost his mind. They're trying to say he had mental issues, but even when they caught him, was scoping out at another subway location in Oakland and was just showing the telltale signs of a would-be serial killer. You know, as somebody with a criminology degree, I've been trained to be able to spot these kinds of people, and demonstrates a lot of serial killer behavior. And, you know, to read the quote, and then I'll let Trey and Amina react to this, but to read the quote from Anne Hathaway, she says this: "How decent are we really? After a black teenager was killed in California, white people, including me, including you, must take into the marrow of our privileged bones the truth that all black people fear for their lives daily in America and have done so for generations. We must ask our white self, how decent are we really? Not in our intent, but in our actions, and our lack of action." So y'all go ahead and react to that. First and foremost, let me just do this. I'll start. It's about time. The Princess Diaries, Anne Hathaway. See, I knew there was a reason why I always liked that girl. Catwoman. Great personality. Great. I love conscious, independent, smart, intelligent, allies like that. Perfect stance, perfect response. You're probably going to get killed for it, but you can come to the cookout, Anne Hathaway. Amita, since this is a young black woman that lost her life, we'll start with the young black woman on the podcast. So you go right ahead.
Okay, hold on. Okay. For those who don't know what happened, this incident happened this past Sunday evening in Oakland, California, which is the Bay Area. On the same public transportation system that Oscar Grant III lost his life to law enforcement on New Year's Day 2009, the BRT train system, better known as BART. It was on Sunday evening. 18-year-old Nia Wilson and her 21-year-old big sister Tashia Wilson, or Tashia, however you want to pronounce it. Tashia survived, but Nia passed. They were traveling, I forget where they were coming from, but they were going home. And they got to their stop, and this white supremacist vigilante, he was quiet. He never said anything to either sister. Like, he just, I guess, was watching them the whole ride through his peripheral vision and time and everything, and made his move. Their stop came. They got off the train. It wasn't his stop, but he got off to follow them. And he just came up on them, and started slicing their bodies with knives, slit their throats and everything. And younger sister, Nia, passed away. She's fighting for her life. And they were looking for this loser for a good 24 to 36 hours. They found him the next night on Monday at another BART station, train station, that was a 30-minute ride away. And a brave, anonymous soul called the authorities and gave the tip and said, "Look, this dude is right here. Like, come get him." And I think the person, because this was, as Kylan said, a serial killer in the making. If anybody knows anything about serial killers, they usually don't stay in the same place too often. And other serial killers, they typically kill in the same scenario. So this was a train station. So he might have been a serial killer in the making that would have been out there killing black women at train stations. So I am most grateful that other lives, in spite of Nia's passing, were saved because of this tip. He was captured and arrested that night, 30s, without incident, I believe. And now he's having court dates. California, y'all still have the death penalty on y'all books. Statewide, California is one of the states that still got the death penalty. If this fool doesn't get executed, it's not going to be pretty. Because if anybody knows anything about the city of Oakland with black folks, it's a majority of black. It's a city where a whole lot of black people live in. It's a major city, it's an inner city. It's like Philly, Chicago, whatever. Oakland, the black people out there do not play. I know people personally who live out there, and they do not play about anything. If this fool is not executed, it's not going to be pretty in the streets of Oakland. I'm just letting y'all know that now. This is Oakland is the birthplace of the original Black Panther Party under Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. This is a historically black city as far as social justice is concerned. Things are going to happen if this fool is not executed. I'm just letting y'all know that now. Again, it's just disappointing because I have a 17-year-old sister. The fact that she's a year younger than Nia is very disturbing. Like, I started catching public transportation on my own, when I was in my early teens. And I never had a situation of having my throat slit or anything beat up or anything except here in Philadelphia. But for this to happen, it's like what is going on with these white folks other than the obvious on these public transportation systems out in the street. As Kylan said, these sisters, one 18 and the other 21, they're young girls that's just literally starting out in their young adult white lives, and it's just so unfortunate. Like, this whole situation is disturbing because it shows the breakdown of our community. Like, if this was to happen to two Indian girls, two white girls, two Asian girls, oh, the people in their community, especially the men, will be in an uproar, outrage, go get them and deal with them. But this happened to two black girls, and I'm not seeing the proper response from black men across the country that I know. They seem to be very, what's the word to describe it? Not even have any type of emotional involved. So my thing is, this could be your little sisters, your little nieces, your daughters, your little cousins, and because of that, you all should have a response to it because we're all black people at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, we're all family, and what impacts one impacts us all. That's the mindset that we have. It should be no, oh, I'm not blood related to that black person over there, so I shouldn't have any type of feeling for it. No, we should have a feeling for all situations involving all our people. I'm just not seeing, the love or care for black women and girls from black men these days that it should be. Which leads me to think that, what would they do if this was actually their blood, their family member, their neighbor? Come on. Where's the community outrage about this situation? He slit their throats with knives, walked up on them, creeped up. Like, come on. What's it going to take for black men to truly protect and serve their communities? It's not the responsibility of law enforcement. They're there to hunt and kill. So this is disturbing. I hope this does not start a pattern of situations across the country. And I hope this is just an isolated incident from here going out, but it's really bothering some that this happened, and it's not much outrage outside of black women speaking up about it. It's like we're standing alone, in situations in life. Where are the black men at? It's few and far between black men doing what they have to do in the community for the women and children. But rest in peace to Nia Wilson, and get well soon to her sister Tashia Wilson, and to their family. May God be with you all during this sicko's trial dates, and I hope he gets life for no parole and gets the death penalty. Because if he doesn't get the death penalty, like I said, it's not going to be pretty in Oakland. And people out there are crazy in California. So, next question. This is just a disturbing situation because it could have been me. I'm only 3 years and 6 years older than them. So, it could have been me.
Trey? Trey there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, so when I heard about this, I mean, first of all, I'm shocked. I mean, because it's not, you never want to hear about something like this. Somebody not only dying but being murdered and stabbed like that. It's whoa. It's I mean, really, you're just like speechless, really, because again, it's tragic to see something like this happen. Somebody so young and to die in this way. I mean, if the person had died of natural causes of cancer or something like that, it's still tragic, right? But it's more understandable, and it's more, you can cope better with it. But to be taken like this is it's upsetting, and I'm glad that they got the guy, but it's really unfortunate, and it's sad that that two black girls can't get on public transportation without fear of, being attacked by really a serial killer. And not only just being killed, but Nia had her throat slit, and then her sister was, stabbed multiple times. Thankfully, she survived. But it's scary, and especially because I have little sisters, so it's just scary and disheartening that anything like this would happen. I mean, in this day and age, you think, I can get on the BART, or I can go get on some public transportation. I'll be safe, But truthfully, in many scenarios, you're not as safe as you'd like to think. And that's really all I can say about that.
I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, we've all had to take the subway or public transportation in some way. I mean, I was kind of a late bloomer myself when it came to taking SEPTA, the subway, which would be the equivalent of uh, Oakland's BART system. I didn't start taking the subway until high school. There are kids in Philadelphia, I know because I worked with them before I came up here to Syracuse, that are taking the subway and they're 6, 7 years old. They're even younger than, Nia Wilson and Takia Wilson. And, this is just a warning to all you people who are brave enough to let your kids, sorry, went Philly, your kids, to let your kids take any kind, whatever your city, your town, or your medium city's transportation system is. You just have to remember. I mean, if you can get your kids a ride, get your kids, make sure that your kids are safe. I mean, there's no other way to put this.
Carpool.
Yeah, as Amina said, there are, those of us that live in cities, Trey can speak to this too. At some point before you get a car, if you're ever blessed enough to get a car before you hit college, you are either going with getting your parents to drop you off, or you're taking whatever your state's transportation system is, because you got to get around, you want to hang out with your friends, and unfortunately, these are the times that we live in now, where people are scoping your children out in order to do harm to them. And it's a shame, if you don't have to worry as far as if you have a daughter about sex trafficking. And, I hate bringing that up. We don't really talk about this on this podcast, but, we're here now. So we might as well cross the bridge. If you're not worrying about somebody trying to steal your daughter and kidnap them, you got to worry about them being on the subway now. Some random black guy, white guy, whatever, trying to do harm to your children. As I don't have any kids, but as somebody who is planning on being a parent, I don't know how parents do it now. I mean, you have a cell phone, but that's not always guaranteed. Depending on your carrier, they don't work underground. You have to worry about your kids 24/7, and it's just a shame, man. A shame that this has to happen, and it sucks for me to say this, but I'm sure it's not going to be the last time something like this happens. prayers and condolences to the Wilson family. And there are going to be a lot of people, especially as this trial comes up, mom, dad, whoever was taking care of them, second guessing themselves if maybe they should have just, used the money to get them an Uber to go somewhere. Even that's not always guaranteed that that'll be safe when you take an Uber or a Lyft. Maybe outside of you dropping your kids off to that location. And some parents take that step. I mean, I know my parents were taking that step. My mother would always call. My mother would always try and make sure that I got to where I needed to be safely. And for some parents, that might be the step you need to take now. That might be the necessary precaution now. Even if no matter how busy you are, maybe you need to drop them off at that house to make sure, because now the subways aren't safe, the malls ain't safe, the church ain't safe. You can be gotten anywhere now. And it sucks right now to be a parent in 2018 because you have to worry and you have to prepare yourself for every circumstance, especially if you are the parent of a black boy or a black girl. It's like you have to prepare for every circumstance. So moving right along to our other serious topic, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen came out and said that Donald Trump knew about the Trump Tower meeting from last July or the July before that. I think it was July 2016, where they had that meeting with the Russians, and they said they were talking about adoptions or whatever. So our thoughts on Michael Cohen basically turning on Trump, snitching on him. I'll start. Donald, 45, this is where he messes up at. There are a few people that you mess with, right? You don't mess with people that make your food. You don't mess with people that are in charge of your child's schooling. And you don't mess with preachers. You don't mess with teachers. You don't mess with bankers, people who are over your money. And you don't mess with people, especially if you're doing illicit activities, criminal activities. You don't mess with the people who are the loyalists to you and know where all the bodies are buried. The one thing everybody said about Michael Cohen is he was 45's fixer, and he knew where, for lack of a better term, not that there are real bodies, he knew where all the bodies were buried. And now it's turning out he's got tapes. He released the tape this week of showing that, a guy who was never loyal to any of his wives paid off somebody who he had an affair with 10 years ago. What a shocker, right? Color me shocked. If you can't, y'all can't hear me because y'all can hear me, but y'all can't see my face. That's sarcasm. Color me shocked. The guy who wasn't loyal to his first two wives was paying for silence of somebody who he cheated on his wife with. Color me shocked. But you don't mess with people that know all the worst secrets about you, especially if you're somebody whose presidency a lot of people think is illegitimate, and you can be undone by any secret this man knows. And now he's got tapes. I mean, like I said, and like John Oliver has said on his show, this is stupid Watergate. This is Nixon all over again, but a more stupid version. This is embarrassing. I didn't vote for the man, but this is embarrassing, especially if you voted for the man. You thought that, because he was a businessman, he was smart. He's proven everybody who's ever thought this man was smart, are wrong every day. And, I can't say nothing else. Don't mess with the people that know where the bodies are buried, for lack of a better term. Like I said, bankers, teachers, cooks, off limits, and people that know where the bodies are buried, for lack of a better term. Go ahead, Trey. Trey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. My tablet keeps going to sleep. Yeah, so I mean, it's more and more interesting things just keep happening with Donald Trump's presidency, day in and day out. you think it's gonna, you're like, oh, it's dying off, things are kind of cooling off and things will be normal, and then something else comes up. I mean, I'm not surprised about any of these things going on. I mean, it's again, it's disheartening. No, this is a different type of disheartening than when I previously mentioned about the Wilson sisters. But it's a shame that his presidency is going the way it's gone, and that people think that he's even close to being a decent a decent president. And it's shameful and scary, really. But I mean, I personally, I don't think anything will come of any of this, because I mean, there's been evidence that has been, presented before and nothing happened. So, why should we believe that anything's going to happen this time? And at this point, I'm almost tired of talking about Donald Trump, really. I'm just really waiting for the day that he finishes up his term in office and we move on to somebody new.
Amina?
Yeah, pretty much agreeing with both of what you all said. Not much else to say than, it is what it is at this point. Whether he gets reelected in 2020 or not, we have to deal with him until his time in the White House expires. So might as well get comfortable until then. But he's like a lot of other presidents. They've said, "Oh, I didn't do such and such. I wasn't at such and such place. I didn't say such and such thing." He's not the first, and he's not going to be the last president to be caught up. Just about every U.S. president since George Washington got caught up in these one thing. So he's just one of the bunch. And it's just his time. This is his time now. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But that's y'all's president. Talk about y'all's that voted for him. This is y'all's president. YA''LLS. Y'all's. Next question.
One that I know, the next two topics, one that I know Amina and Trey want to talk about. Kawhi Leonard passed his physical exam with the Toronto Raptors, which a lot of people say debunks San Antonio Spurs claims that he was still injured. So, y'all reaction to Kawhi Leonard passing a physical? I'll start. This is what I'll say about that. I'm a little iffy to say that the Spurs are lying, especially because we know and it's been confirmed that Kawhi Leonard was hiding from them. Their doctors would be in New York or wherever he was, and he would go see the Sixers doctor without telling them. He would do a lot of sneaky things behind their back. So I'm loath to say that, the Spurs were lying when they thought he was still injured, because, you have to take into account that Kawhi Leonard was in his feelings based on whatever they did to his uncle and their misdiagnosis of his injury. They were trying to do their best, and he was being a little bit rebellious. And now he ended up, and like I said last week, NBA Siberia in Toronto. I know a Raptors fan who's very happy to have Kawhi Leonard, but it's still NBA Siberia in Toronto. So I'm moved to say that this disproves the Spurs' claims that he was still injured, because he can still start training camp and then miss the first 16 games of Toronto's season, and we'll be saying the same thing. But he passed his physical exam, and we thought he wasn't injured. Now, Kawhi Leonard had a quad injury. And quad injuries are injuries that can flare up on you at any time. And that's why I'm not quick to say that he's healthy. I want to see him in game, playing a full season and not being injured. Before I say the Sixers waste any money on him in free agency next year. And I think that's that. I don't think it disproves anything. I think anybody can pass a physical exam, for real, for real. And I need to see more. I need to see him in the gym. I need to see him go more than 2 hours, an hour on a basketball court without getting injured. That's what I need to see for me to justify, if I'm a GM, wasting any money on him next year, giving him 5 years, 300 or 210 million, whatever his contract will say that he deserves next year. I need to see him play a full game. So I'm not there yet. This will be the one time where I'll stick up for an organization on this podcast and say, I'm not ready to say that the Spurs lied, especially knowing what we know about how Kawhi Leonard went to great lengths to hide himself from the Spurs. Go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I agree with you, man. I haven't seen enough either. Like, I mean, all he did was pass a physical. I mean, I didn't. I thought, in my opinion, I thought had always been healthy, and I think he, like you said, he was hiding. And I mean, as much as I like Kawhi Leonard, this whole thing has kind of turned into a little bit of I mean, it's bad PR for him because he looks really bad in this situation because, I mean, Greg Popovich is a Hall of Fame coach. He's going to go down in history as a great player. Kawhi Leonard is a really good player, but he has not. His legacy is still loose. It's written in pencil. It is not written in permanent marker. Okay, so I think Kawhi Leonard just needs to go back to what he was. He's still quiet. It's weird because he's still been quiet for the most part. He needs to continue to be quiet and just do his job and play. Because at this point, he's partially tarnished his reputation. And like you said, Colin, anybody can pass a physical. I mean, if they're healthy, they can pass physical, and he passed physical, but I need to see him. I believe he's healthy, and clearly he was healthy enough to pass physical. What I need to see for him is that I want to see him play, and I need to see that he's willing to play in Toronto. I don't believe he's going to stay in Toronto, but I at least need him to be an adult about things and, go and do the job that he's getting paid to do.
Mina?
Yes, I agree with what both you all said. Going into a deeper thought about it, anybody can pass like a physical for whatever reason, whether it has to be for work, schooling, traveling, whatever. But it doesn't mean that you should. It's one of those things where just because you can do something, that doesn't mean you should, I guess. We haven't seen Kawhi Leonard play games since I think it was the wintertime. Because he was not in the playoffs. We know that. And he was not in playing games towards the end of the regular season. So we haven't seen him play consistent games since the winter time that I think of. And because of that, we don't know how his playing ability has been impacted because he hasn't played in so many months. So we would have to see him play for a good 6 months, I would say. I would say if he can start at the start of the season in October and play consistently, like every game, every week, until All-Star Weekend in February. That'll give a really great, just one season definition of where Kawhi Leonard is compared to where he was in the first 7 years of his career. And then we'll be able to truly judge. But as I really thought about it concerning this question, we really can't judge too much because we don't know. Like, he was literally hiding from the Spurs team when they tried to find him for physicals and stuff. So, and he hasn't even broken his silence in the media either. His uncle has been so-called doing all his talking for his nephew over there. We all know the Kawhi Leonard. He's a quiet soul. He don't say much of anything. He don't talk about much of anything that he should or should not. Like, he's quiet. Like, he don't say nothing. But it'd be nice if he actually broke his silence once in a blue moon. Because I really want to know what he has to say about all this that's going on with him. But yeah, like, we will have to see him suited and booted. And I don't think that he will stay with the Raptors for long term. I don't see it. I see this being just a rent-a-player situation where, he's just sitting there waiting until his free agency comes next summer. And then he's going to go to wherever he wants. Based on the rumors this offseason, it's most likely the Clippers or the Sixers. But neither team needs to invest in him if he can't do what he needs to do in Toronto. The teams need to really look hard and deep at the Kawhi Leonard factor and see if it's even worth it investing in him. So take a good, long, hard look because you don't want to waste money. But I still got support for him, but the way he left the Spurs, it was not good. On his end or the Spurs end. It was just messy. So whatever team he does truly end up being on for long term, he needs to make do good on their investment and start talking more often than you have been in your career. Be more vocal about what's going on with you. Be the grown 27-year-old man that you are and stop letting your uncle talk for you. You're 27, not 7. So grown men speak for themselves. They don't have representatives unless it's a legal representative. So we need to hear directly from you what's going on. Not from the grapevine, not from reports or rumors. I want to hear straight from you what's going on with you. But other than that, let's get started with this season that's going to be here in 2.5 months. Waiting for schedules to come out.
All right. Well, before we get to the last question, we just had some breaking news that I just found out about. This is more for Trey and me. Meaning you can weigh in too. NBA Live has decided, they can't really compete with NBA 2K, but they have decided to do something, a first in video games, allow you to be able to create women players in the game. Now we're still yet to hear if that means that we're actually going to get WNBA teams for the season and for the franchise mode of the game. But Trey, your reaction to that? Go ahead. You know it's dry when we're talking about video games in the sports world. Go ahead, Trey.
Well, Colin, you're a little bit late on this.
Listen, man, I told you I have 6 assignments in 4 days.
Well, I mean, I'm happy, man. And because if you haven't played NBA Live, it's actually a really good game, to be honest with you. I think the one fault of NBA Live is its mechanics are not the greatest. But as far as being a good video game, I mean, I like NBA Live. And when I found out about last year was the first time they had the WNBA players in the game, and you could just do play now with them. And then yesterday I heard about that they're allowing you to do, create a player. And I love it, man. Like a lot of people don't like WNBA basketball, but I like WNBA basketball. And playing with the characters is really fun. People like Maya Moore and Candace Parker. It's really fun. People like Elena Deladon, really fun to play with. Now, what I do want to see is I want to see you be able to use them in franchise mode, use the WNBA teams in franchise mode, and hopefully in the near future you'll be able to use the players and like you'll actually be able to do like an NBA Live is called The One. It's NBA Live's version of 2K's My Career. Hopefully at some point you'll be able to do that, because I've always found it weird that, because I have some friends who play 2K, but they're girls, and it's kind of weird, but they play 2K and they make a My Career player, and it's a guy. They play NBA Live and make a My Career player, and it's a guy. So hopefully we'll get to that point where you'll see a WNBA version of the My Career mode, and maybe even a totally separate game at some point.
Yeah, unless Amina has anything to add, I'll go. Do you want to talk about this, Amina?
Mm-mm.
All right, so I'll go. Yeah, like I joked, it's dry when we're talking about video games in late July. But yeah, I'm excited for NBA Live. It's a game that I played for a little bit. Haven't played in recent years. Haven't played since 2008 or 2010. Whatever game that was that Dwayne Wade was the cover athlete was the last NBA Live I played. But I'm happy that NBA Live is being progressive enough, and it's basically because they have to compete with 2K that they're doing all this, even things that I thought that I was shocked that 2K didn't think of. But I'm happy for Live. I'm happy for the players, especially the female gamers, as Trey alluded to, who can finally play as their favorite WNBA players. I wish I had games back when I could really have time to get into video games. That I could play with some of my favorite WNBA players like Cynthia Cooper and Lisa Leslie. I wish that I had a game that would have allowed me to do that, but unfortunately, due to that time, technology wasn't where it was supposed to be, where it is now to allow for that. But I'm happy for all the people who love the NBA enough that that they will use that feature, and I'm happy for them. And I hope that success continues. I hope that Live continues to push 2K, because competition is good for everybody. And then now we'll move on to our next question. All right, guys, I'm going to twist this question on his head a little bit. Vince Carter's 41. Jason Terry is in his 40s. And Dirk Nowitzki, if he's not there yet, he's getting ready to be there. There's only 3 players left in what I would call the greatest era of basketball, the 90s to 2000 era of basketball. And once those 3 players retire, our era that we grew up in, early 2000s basketball, will be over. So y'all reaction to that? Go ahead, Trey.
It's pretty cool to see that, Vince Carter stayed in the league so long, and he's kind of bounced around. Now, unfortunately, he does not have a ring. It is unfortunate because, Vince Carter is probably one of the, in my opinion, he's one of the best players of this generation. Great dunker. Always very professional on and off the court. And I would love to see him go to a contender and win a championship if that's at all possible. But and then you got guys like Jason Terry who played, but it's cool because you have two, not tiers of players, but two different, I guess tiers, but not in terms of skill, like tiers in certain terms of, mindset or whatever you want to call it. You had guys like Kobe who stayed, long term with one team and won a lot of championships, and then you have guys like Vince Carter, who have been on one team or another for, they've bounced around a lot more and haven't stayed on one team. But I've always loved Vince Carter as a player, and I hope at some point before he does retire, because it is likely coming after this season, that he gets a ring. Because to be honest with you, he deserves one. But the weird thing for me though is that I was born in '97, and to be honest, I didn't really start actually watching basketball consistently probably until I was 12 or 13. So that's like 2007, 2008, which was at the end of was towards the end of Vince Carter's prime. But yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on that. You got a lot of players that are getting close to a lot of players who were great in the '90s / 2000s of basketball, and they're coming close to their retirement.
Amina, I know you're ready to go on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, this question is more sentimental for those that are my age and older, like to me and Kylan's age, and especially those that are older, who basically, were 24, 25 and older. I grew up, I started watching basketball as a very young. When I say young, I mean I remember watching those second three-peat Chicago Bulls games in the 90s. I mean, this is how long I've been watching basketball. I watched Jordan, I watched Rodman, I watched Kerr, I watched all that. I watched Tim Duncan in his early days. I watched Tim Duncan when he got his first ring in '99. Like, I remember this. I remember when Iverson got drafted when I was little. I remember when Kobe got drafted with him, same draft class. So this is like sentimental. It's like the fact that there's only 3 players left from the '90s that got drafted. Vince Carter and Dirk Nowitzki got drafted together actually in 1998. Jason Terry got drafted the following year in 1999. So this is the time. This was the time when I really started watching basketball. When I was like in first grade, and it's the end of an era soon. The '90s is by far rated, in my opinion, and many others would agree, one of the greatest of 2 decades of the NBA. It had a little bit of everything in that decade, as far as the fundamentals of basketball, with defense, offense, ball handling. We had that. We had some great shooters in that time, and the fact that there's only 3 left, and there was hundreds of them. It's like, wow. But I also feel bad for Vince Carter at this point, because Dirk Nowitzki, he has a ring from 2000. Actually, Dirk Nowitzki and Jason Terry were both on that 2011 Dallas Mavericks team, and that's the only rings that both of them have from 2011 when they played against the what was it was the Miami Heat they played against. Yeah. Um, Vince Carter. I would love for him to get a ring in his career, and the only viable team that could get one at this point is if he came to Golden State. And speaking of Golden State, that's the team that actually drafted him. He was traded to another team that night, but that's the team that drafted him in 1998. And looking back on it, if he had stayed on that team for his whole career, he would have had 3 rings by now. Looking at it, so being traded to teams and moving around, being a team hopper, that really he's the definition of how it can impact your career. Like think about it. If he had been on the Warriors for 20 years now, look where could he have been? He could have had 3 rings right now, but instead he has none. So if he wants a ring, he needs to hit up the front office of my team, the owners, and our general manager Bob Myers real quick, because he ain't getting no ring no other where else. He needs to go back to the team that drafted him. It's truly the end of an era. The 90s was some glory days. Yeah, Kobe, Iverson, Shaq. Who else? We had Duncan. We had Robin. We had Jordan. All these great people. Yeah, Hakeem Olajuwon, Dream Team. Yo, that era is unreplaceable in NBA history. Like it won't be ever to be able to be repeated, redone. Those were the end of the good old days in the NBA. And I'm glad that I'm old enough to actually look back on it and say that I actually watched it live towards the end of it. Because those younger than me, they were not blessed. So we're witnessing the end of an era in the NBA, and it's truly remarkable that these 3 players, Vince Carter, Dirk Nowitzki, and Jason Terry, have held on for this long. 2 of them since '98, and the other one since '99. And I just wish them well. I mean, I don't know when they'll retire. It's probably going to be within the next 2 to 3 years. But this is just the change of tides in the NBA. And now it's a whole new generation coming up in the NBA as far as players and young people watching. So just emotional. It's like not not a moment to cry about, but concerning these 3. But it's like any other era that ended as far as sports. And this is just one of them that's coming sooner rather than later. Because they ain't got much more in mouths left in them. So, I wish them well. And Vince Carter, please do not let yourself retire after being in the NBA with all these years under your belt with no ring.
Yeah, I mean, this is deep. Um, we are, witnessing the end of an era. It is amazing to see that the last 3 remaining of that late 90s to 2000 class is Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter, and Jason Terry, 3 of the most toughest and rugged players we had in that generation. Vince Carter made Toronto, even though I affectionately call it NBA Siberia, Vince Carter was the originator of making the Toronto Raptors cool again, because before that, no one really cared about Toronto. but it's because of Vince Carter and his dunks and the way he entertained us for so long that we know what the Toronto Raptors are. Him and Tracy McGrady put the Toronto Raptors on the map and brought them into the pop culture sphere, because a lot of people have just said, oh, the Raptors, that's just that Canadian team. But they had, and I know Amina will remember, there's some great matchup against Iverson Sixers back in the day in the early 2000s in the playoffs. And, you know, we just are blessed to have seen these players grow up for so long when we grew up and for trade towards the end. But just seeing these players as the vanguard of that late 90s, 96 to 2000s generation of basketball, is going to be like the end of an era when they retire. I mean, like,
it is the end of an era.
When they finally retire, it's just like, it's going to be, I agree. I mean, it is the end of an era, but they're not retired yet. Once they really retire, then we can talk about that era and where they sit and where all three of them sit. But man, I love watching all three of those players, and I really want Vince Carter to get the ring. And I really
some great years, right? It was 96. We had Iverson, we drafted 97 was Tim Duncan, 98 was Dirk Nowitzki, Vince Carter, 99 was whatchamacallit. Those were some great drafts in 96.
They were, and it's a shame. It's a shame that that's where we are now. But, you know, great players. Hope Vince Carter gets a ring. There's nothing left to say. That does it for the 94th episode of the Crossover Sports Podcast. I want to thank Trey, I want to thank Amina, especially with our schedules not really being in sync, to being able to move this back up to our original time at 1 o'clock. I want to thank y'all for your prayers, your wall posts over the past couple of weeks, especially on Thursday for my birthday. Thank you guys for the support. Continue to support this podcast. Check out WatsonSportsTakes.com. Even though I'm not really posting, Trey and Amina and them will be posting on it in my absence while I'm in grad school. But you can check out stuff written by me on NCC Expressions. If you Google that, that's the Syracuse page for graduate students, and that's where I at least had 3 articles up on there. Some of them are sports related, some of them are more crime and stuff, so definitely check that out. Hopefully I'll get permission to post those on my blog just to keep it fresh. But you know, that's where you can find my stuff. And eventually, once they let me out in 2 more weeks out of boot camp for the school, you might see some fresher articles up there. But continue to support. Trey and Amina do great work. You know, a lot of time schedules and stuff. They're keeping this podcast, keeping the website alive in my absence. So keep them in your prayers. Wish them luck. Y'all have great rest this weekend. And I will hopefully see you all. We will hopefully see you all next week for episode 95. But until then, enjoy your great week. Enjoy your weekend. Stay hydrated. Stay dry. For those of you that are still on the East Coast and still suffering from these rains, stay dry. Have a great weekend. Deuces.